Hello, everyone. Welcome to class 3. It is class 3 of our 14-day childbirth series. Your YouTube Childbirth class is here and ready to go, and really excited about tonight. I say that every night, but I really do enjoy teaching. I love interacting with you guys in the chat. And I really love questions. I love comments. It's so great. And we're going to have a great night tonight. We are talking about 2 super important topics. And actually, let me start with showing my, can you guys see my affirmation that I have? It says, "My body is strong." Woohoo! Which really goes with our topic tonight, where we're talking about contractions and we're talking about movement. Now, I might look calm and collected, but I was just rushing around trying to find one of my props. It is a child's toy, so it is lost, though my children are a little bit older, but it's okay. We're going to roll with it, and I'm going to describe it. We're still going to get a lot out of contractions. Hello to so many people that I recognize, I've seen before in the chat. I love it. Hello to new faces. If it's your first time being in this class, please say hello to in the chat. You can share anything you want, where you're watching, how many weeks pregnant you are, what you're drinking, how your day was. I do want to welcome a new channel member popped up. Yay! Welcome, Talia Murphy 31. Welcome. Members of the channel get access to our after the class practice. So this class should last a whole hour. And then we do a practice session that is right at about 10 to 15 minutes. It actually gets a little bit longer as we're practicing more of our coping techniques. So if you're interested in that, you can do that through the join button below. Let's see, how did anyone have thoughts? Who's here 3 days in a row? I would love to see that. Even if you weren't live 3 days in a row. Also, for those of you watching on replay, I would love for you to put a comment, #childbirthreplay, and let me know that you are part of the replay group, please. Hello to Tara and Natalie, Jasmine, Dabu Doodles, Catherine, Mercedes, Tiffany, O'Neill, Dawn, Sheeta B19, Kayla, Ashley. Ooh, day 3 in a row. Awesome. I love it. Great. Tiffany said she catched up from the first night. I love it. Really great. Okay, guys, as always, I like to give you a reference if you're following along in the book. And here is our book that I use as a supplement to class. So again, if we were in person, this would be a book that you would be using to reference. So today's pages are pages 8 and 9 for contractions, and then 42 through 44 for movement. Okay. If you are wanting to get a book, let me just go ahead and put that link on here. Where's my link? I know it's here. You guys know it's here. Get the class kit. So it comes with a workbook, handouts, a plastic fan. I sent them all, but they're in my cabinet. A plastic fan, which is great when you get hot in labor. We're going to talk about pushing on day 10. Day 10 is pushing. And if you need a handy topic list, you can get the topic list here. Okay. One last piece of business, and then we are going to start contracting, guys. We are going to start contracting. I love so many good 3 in a rows. I love it. Jim's 3 in a row. Jade, thank you. I love it. Ooh, Carolyn's day 3 and 39 weeks pregnant. Okay, Caroline, will you make it to day 14 pregnant? We don't know. You're probably wondering the same thing, right? Okay, one last piece of business because I feel like it's helpful. Let me share my alternative screen with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, at the URL YouTube Childbirth Class. So it's really easy to remember. YouTube Childbirth Class, you get to this page, and on this page, you can always get to the topic list download. You can get a link straight to our class. This is how if you want to get on the bonus practice session that I was talking about. And then here I update every day with a GIF from the class. I think they're fun. Let me know in the comments if you think they're fun. I don't know why. It's my fun ritual. The morning after a class, I go through and try to find a good part of the class to make a GIF out of. Okay. So you can go to the replays here if you ever miss a class. And then we have links that will be for the upcoming classes and the kit. It's all there at YouTube. YouTube Childbirth Class gets you there. It's a redirect. Whew, so much business. So much business. I think that's all the business that I need to take care of. And I'm ready for my slides. So say hello if you guys haven't said hello in the chat. I see a lot of hellos. So great. Oh, yay. Okay, O'Neill, you love the gifts. That's all I need. I just need one person to validate me. Set. We're doing one. What will tomorrow be? Okay, guys, contractions. Contractions. We love contractions. I want to start out by talking about backwards day. Did anyone experience backwards day when they were a kid? Now, I have kids in all levels of school right now. I've got college, high school, middle school, elementary. I have four. And I feel like right now this is something that's being done in both elementary and high. And that's where they do these spirit weeks or these like fun days, wear your favorite sports team, whatever. But the little kids are do this backwards day. And it is a concept that I have embraced when we talk about childbirth. And the first thing a lot of people think of, and let me know what your first thought of is when you think of contractions. Contractions. What are your thoughts about contractions? Let me know in the chat. The thing about contractions is that they are the work of labor. You guys remember on night 1 where we talked about that cervix, where it is closed, hard, backwards, thick, and we got to get it to this, right? We've got to get it open, thin, and pointed anterior and soft. So a lot of work has to happen to do that. Well, the work that happens are contractions. Contractions are the work of labor. And the uterus pain. Okay, we got some 100 times worse than menstrual cramps. Interesting. Okay. Pain, tightness. We think tightening. Yeah, I like that. Hard work. Yeah. So contraction actually is all of those things. Contraction is our uterus, which is the muscle that the baby lives in, pulling up. And as it's pulling up, it's doing a couple things. It's working on opening that cervix, working on that lock. We've got that 4-part lock that we've got to get to. And we are pushing down. So it's the work of labor. And the reason I like to talk about backwards day, let me show you this visual as I'm talking. It's almost like a balloon, right? Baby is in this water balloon and the uterine muscle is squeezing it. That's what's happening each time. And the reason I like to talk about it being backwards day is because a lot of those descriptions that you guys used and a lot of us think of when we think about, we're having contractions, a lot of times we think negative, right? We're like, ooh, those are hard. That's work. That's pain. But I want us to change our mindset and think positive. Because really, when we're pregnant, we know we have to go through the act of labor to get our baby out. Now, of course, there's exceptions with scheduled C-sections, but let's put that aside for now, okay? we will talk about C-sections actually in depth, cesarean birth on day 11, just making sure everybody knows, especially if anybody's watching this and they know what cesarean is in their future. Okay, so contractions is that work that we know we have to go through. So if we know we have to do all this work, as soon as we can be positive and accepting of it, it's a good thing. So I like to start that mindset and start thinking about that for when we start walking down that labor journey, as contractions, usually start off kind of light and manageable. And then as they get stronger, sometimes people will say, oh, they're stronger. Oh, they're getting stronger as a negative. But I want you to backwards day that idea and say, they're getting stronger. They're getting closer together. They're coming more often and they're lasting longer. All of these might seem like more pain, more challenge, but really as we get closer, we really want to embrace these contractions. So backwards day is an idea that I like to use. Sometimes I use it with my clients when they say, oh no, things are getting stronger. Like backwards day, we like it. That's great. Yeah. Kayla says, calling them rushes. Yeah. So sometimes we hear contractions, the contraction word itself kind of sounds negative, and calling them rushes or calling them surges. I'm open to all of that. It's ingrained in my mind to call them contractions because I have this very science-based mind engineer background. And so even though some of the childbirth techniques like hypnobirthing, hypnobabies prefers more of those, that's gentler, which is great term for what's happening. My brain always says contractions. It's hard to switch over, but I like that idea. Even changing the name. So contractions are the work of labor. We know we're in labor when we're having contractions that are regular and that have a start, a stop, and a peak. And I have a visual for you guys for that. Here we go, our mountain visual. And that's a bell curve over it. Contractions for a lot of people start off a little bit undefined edges. So if you've ever experienced menstrual cramps, let me know. And if you want to share, let me know in the chat. But usually menstrual cramps are felt below the belly button, low. And a lot of times they just kind of exist. They're just sort of there. And they're kind of not there, but then they're kind of there again. Let me know if you guys can kind of picture what I'm talking about. That with menstrual cramps, they're not as strong, like starting a menstrual cramp, wow, they're strong, ending, and everything's quiet. We don't really see that much with menstrual cramps, but that same organ, that same muscle, that's the uterus, is doing work. Let me know in the chat if you guys can relate to that as I take a quick sip. Sip your water. Like a drinking game, but not a pregnant drinking game. So as we are trying to think about what is, oops, let me turn a little bit. What's real labor? What's Braxton Hicks? How do we know we're in real labor? I really want you to think of this image. Your contractions should have a definite start, a definite stop, and a peak, just like this mountain. Okay, there should be a defined. And then in between, we've got a nice rest. So start, stop, peak. And let me pull up in our book. that you'll see any kind of imagery from contractions all have this bell-type curve, the contraction of labor, bell-type curve, and then rest. Bell-type curve and rest. Okay, so before we are experiencing that, no one's talking in the chat about their menstrual cramps, and I understand. Ooh, let me see. Cabinet open. Before we can have that start, peak, and stop, we are still in a phase of labor that's considered early labor. Early labor is the time. It is the time of the beginning of labor all the way through 6 centimeters. Wow. Does that surprise anybody? If we've got to get to 10, early labor, what's called early, is actually 6. 6 out of that 10. That's a significant part of labor. That's called early labor, right? I want to show you a picture of what early, sorry about that. There we go. What early labor looks like. Early labor is any time from when we start feeling something going on through when we're starting to feel that start, peak, and stop, to when that is regular, when those are coming regularly. Maybe they're coming every 15 minutes, every 12. Maybe we get like a 10, an 11, a 12 or so. And that keeps going enough until that work dilates our cervix to 6 centimeters. Now, I show this picture of early labor because I really like it. Show this picture because I really like it. I think it shows a lot about the realities of what we are doing in early labor. Now, early labor certainly can be a lot more active where you're really having to manage it, but there is generally an amount of time that looks like this. Let me know in the chat, does this person look like they are in early labor? Yes or no? Do they look like they're in labor at all? I want to know. Yes. Braxton Hicks is like pain from reflux. Yeah, so let's talk. We're going to talk about Braxton Hicks also and the difference between the two. So let me know what you think about this early labor picture. Yes. Okay. Could be. Yeah. That's right. So they could be. Because I heard you can have a conversation in early labor. Yes. I like this one. Sarah says that picture doesn't look like she's in any pain. I love that. I'm going to take that comment and let's talk through that a little bit. Thank you, Sarah. That's perfect. So early labor is still one that can have some significant rest periods. So we've got our start of a contraction, our peak, our stop, and then we have a rest. So if we are having contractions, say 8 minutes apart, maybe lasting a minute long, we have 7 minutes of rest. So during that 7 minutes of rest, she could be having a conversation. She could be catching up maybe with her virtual doula. She could be talking with a family member, right? What you don't see is the 1 minute of contraction, which in early labor might look like this. For a minute, and then, that one's fine. Let's go about this conversation that I'm having. Maybe she's teaching a childbirth class, right? Probably not. But what I want everyone to know is that there is a lot of time in early labor where people are still can be very restful in between, can be very much going about their business in between the contractions. Now, as contractions grow and as labor progresses, then our hills, our start to stop time get longer. Length of contraction gets longer. So maybe we start off with 30-second contractions, then we get to a minute contractions, that maybe even a little bit more than a minute in early labor. So the length of the contraction will get stronger. Of course, they'll start coming more frequent, so that rest time is shorter, and they're more intense. And that's how we know we're making progress. So if you were thinking like, if I'm laboring at home, how do I know anything is happening? How will I know, my body is making progress? Remember, longer, stronger, closer together. Longer, stronger, closer together. Or you can cheat, which is fine. I'm all for cheating. And use a contraction timer on your phone. So contraction timers on your phone can give you a heads up and can do all this fancy calculation for you. Basically, they are set up so that when you're in labor, either you or your support partner, contraction starting, bloop, press it to start, and then la la la, contraction stops, bloop, contraction starting again, bloop, stop, bloop, and then you look at it and it will tell you how frequent your contractions are, how often they're coming, and how long they are. Now, only you can tell how strong they are, right? But I say that, and actually, that's kind of a little bit incorrect, because pregnant person can tell how strong they are if they're getting stronger, for sure. But support partners can often tell too. If it went from just like to like doing more coping mechanisms, probably getting stronger. Okay, I'm giving you a lot of information. Are you following me so far? Early labor, contractions are from wherever they start till when they've got that peak, start, stop, and peak, all the way until they get longer, stronger, closer together, and you're 0 to 6 centimeters, or you're 6 centimeters dilated. That is early labor. What questions are like popping in your mind right now? Natalie gives me a thumbs up. I love it. I'm going to do a quick heads up on the best way to use a contraction timer while you guys are putting any kind of contractions, any kind of questions right now in the chat. Okay, contraction timer. Biggest mistake that people have is it's kind of addictive. It's kind of fun. It's like you just want to keep, especially if there's any engineers in the room. Raise your hand if you're an engineer, or you like math, or you like data. That's me. Love data. Love a spreadsheet. You get a lot of data on this, so it gets a little exciting. So what I've seen before, and I'm not just saying one time, I'm talking like many, many, many times. I see partners who cannot put this down. And they're like, they're partners in the bathroom, and they're like, "Are you having a contraction? Well, you didn't tell me when it was over." And then they look down and they're like, "Oh no, now my whole my grid is off because I missed one. And so this one's going to look like it's 20-minute long in between, but not 10. You guys can picture this, especially you data people. I love it. I see some engineers and some data lovers. Yeah, love it, right? And so you can picture, I bet you meant data. Yeah, data, Rachel. Spreadsheets, right, Tara? Spreadsheets. Fun fact. I actually thought one of my coping strategies in labor with my first child was I was going to put my contractions into a spreadsheet, and I thought that would bring me comfort. Turns out your rational brain in labor doesn't work. The pregnant person cannot do that. Okay, so what I want you to do is embrace the contraction timer only for like 20 minutes out of an hour. Just, or say 5 contractions, and then please put it away. because you don't want to fall into the trap of, especially support people, just staring at your timer and staring at your phone, or like, and not like actually talking to the person you're supporting, or like giving water, you know, giving food, all those support person things. So that's my quick little tip on contraction timers. Oh my gosh. I have to share this story. We have enough time because I know you guys will love it. And any story I share about clients that I've worked with, they have given me permission to share the story. So that pertains for the next, 13 days, 12 days, 10 days, 10 days. I knocked on the door of a client's house, doula. They said they're ready for me to come. Knocked on the door, and Dad opened the door, and he had his laptop open kind of in the family room. So I walked in, and he's like, "Oh, I've been tracking it on my laptop with the contraction timer, and come see it. Let me show you the contractions." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And as soon as I was like taking off my shoes, so I could go across their living room and see his data. And all of a sudden from the back room, I hear, "Ah!" And I was like, "Oh no, we have to go to the hospital." Like, it was the sound of someone not in early labor, like in close to pushing labor. And I said, "Oh, I can't look at your data. Like, we need to go now." And he said, "I was going to take the dogs out for a walk." Like, "You're going to need to call a neighbor. Like, let's get her in the car." It was also not her first baby, so that speeds things up. And he was so sad. And I actually rode to the hospital with them, and her water broke in the car. Okay, enough of that story. You guys will not fall victim to the contraction timer, but we know the contraction timers. Okay, there's a question and people are wanting to know. Let's see, which one? Okay, there's a couple good questions. I went back. James says, "How long does early labor typically last? And how do you know when it progresses without knowing dilation?" Right. So early labor, generally, if we have an 18-hour labor, we are going to have the vast majority of it early labor. So everybody, get out your hands, okay? Get out your hands. Put your hands up in fists. I can see you. Pretend I can see you. On the count of 3, everybody put out the number of fingers you think that each finger is an hour. Early labor would last. If we have an 18-hour labor, how long would early labor last? This is on average, okay? 1, 2, 3. What did you guys get? Let me know in the chat. So my ballpark is I usually teach about 10 hours. So it's, of course, plus or minus, but it's a good amount of labor. It might even be more than 10, but we only have 10 fingers in this example. How do you know when it's progressing? You're going to look at that. Longer, stronger, closer together. Longer, stronger, closer together. I'm clapping because somehow the clapping helps me remember it. Longer, stronger, closer together. Okay? Yes. Oh, a lot of you guys did 10, 10, 9. Dabu Doodle said, somebody said 10, someone said 4. Excellent. Very good. Yeah. So it's quite a while. It's quite a while. Longer, stronger, closer together. Okay? I love this question. The graceful one. What do contractions really feel like? Can you describe it in more detail? Where do you feel it? I assume people will just know. Okay. I came up with this a few years ago. And so far, I feel like it's working pretty well. So ready for it? Go with me here. I think that if you've ever had now, if you've never had this, I'm sorry. But if you've ever had a Charlie horse or I think that's what they call it, right? Where your calf muscle, right here, just goes into a ball, seizes up, right? Let me know in the chat if you've had this. And you're kind of like, what do I do? How do I get rid of it? And then eventually it kind of like lets go on its own, or maybe you like massage it or whatever. Okay, it's not exactly like that. What I want you to imagine is if, now all of this is happening right here, low, below, here's my belly button, low, right in this area right here. Imagine your uterus is like that muscle, like the Charlie horse that's, contracting up, but that process is done slow. So it's like you feel the Charlie horse coming, right? And you're like, oh, I feel like a Charlie horse is coming. And it's like, but think of that super slow, super slow. The pain that you feel of the Charlie horse where it's at the top, like the top, that's the peak of the contraction. The difference here is that as soon as it goes over that peak, it starts going down. So if you can imagine a slow Charlie horse that's like, uh-oh, Charlie horse is coming. Oh no, ow, oh, now it's coming down. That is sort of what a contraction is like, but it's right here. Okay? Let me know if you followed me there. That's my description of a contraction. The cool, that's not the right word. It's the right word for me because I'm a childbirth educator. The cool thing is that with contractions, once it's over, it's over. You are like having a normal day. Then it's like, oh, here comes a contraction. Okay, I'm going to get ready. Breathing. Okay, it's on that peak, but now it's going down. Okay, let's have a normal day. So many times I've seen partners be like, you're like totally normal in between these contractions. It's bizarre. And I just say like, yeah, I know, it's cool, right? It's amazing. The time when this doesn't happen, where that rest is restful, is sometimes when we have a baby that's in a posterior position. We talked a lot about the baby last night and about the position. When baby is in a posterior position, not the restfulness sometimes isn't as restful. Sometimes that restfulness can be just a present kind of pain, achiness in the back. That can sometimes happen. If baby is not in that OP position, generally we have a good rest. Okay. Whew. It's so fun to teach this class. I hope you guys are having fun. Let's see. Is it Aileen? Aileen said, I felt a lot of pain in my low back and legs. Yeah, sometimes some people feel contractions in their thighs, in their back. It's not as common, but it can happen. So yeah. Okay. So many good questions. You guys I love all the interaction in the chat. Okay, I'm peeking down at my notes to make sure that we stay on track. Okay, I'm going to touch on this now with a mention that we are going to go into a lot of in-depth tomorrow. So class 4 is early. I'm always referring back. Early labor. We're talking about that tomorrow in depth. So I know I introduced it tonight, but to me, it's the phase of labor that getting it right. That's, not really everything is right, but having a good strategy for it and knowing a lot about it, I feel like is really important, especially because a lot of people choose to get pain medication in labor. And a lot of times they get pain medication in the next 2 phases that I'm going to talk about, which is active labor and transition. So that is why I really focus on early labor and sleep in denial. So if you're having some still questions about like when to go to the hospital and, how to deal with early labor or whatever, tomorrow night, we're definitely going to go into depth. Okay, but I want to talk about the next phase of labor, So after we hit 6 centimeters, between 6 and 8 really is the technical definition of active labor. And contractions during active labor are generally in a pattern where they are coming under 5 minutes apart. So contraction, maybe less than 4 minutes, contraction, less than 4 minutes, okay? So they're under, did I say 4 minutes? 5 minutes apart. I don't know what I said, but under 5 minutes apart is a general sort of estimate for what active labor looks like. They last, so the start, the peak, and the stop are generally 1 minute at least. That's active labor. So, and oftentimes a little bit more. So if you're thinking about this and thinking about how early labor looks, right, to the bystander looking or sport person watching versus active labor, I really like this picture. Obviously, she's in a hospital gown. She's got her head down. She's got her eyes closed. You know, it really shows that she is more sort of focused, right? So the rest times are shorter. And a lot of times in active labor, the rest time is less chatty. Maybe things that were comfortable during the rest. Like I've had people watch movies during their rest or during early labor where they're still having contractions 5 minutes apart, but it's like they're watching a movie, they pause, watching a movie, which is a great strategy for coping if that brings you comfort. I worked with a family who watched the movie Dodgeball, and she watched it 3 times through, and I had never seen it before. So I've kind of seen the movie Dodgeball 3 times in a row, but not really. Fun fact. Has anyone seen? I'm sure you guys have seen that movie. So active labor is, okay, good question. Let's see, Killian says, is that 5 minutes from start to start or from end? Yes. Oh, I love this. Thank you, Killian. That is a key piece that I missed out. So you are like my assistant here, and I appreciate you. It is from start to start, start to start. So when we talk about contractions 5 minutes apart, that means the start of one to the start of the next, start of one, start of the next. So if we had contractions that were 5 minutes apart and 1 minute long, it would be start, minute of contraction, 4 minutes rest, minute of contraction, 4 minutes rest. I am so glad you asked that question. Awesome. You know what? I don't want to skip this question, Cheetah B19, because it's a great one. And it is, does natural and medically induced contractions feel? I imagine you meant, do they feel the same, right? Oh yeah, yep, the same after it, right? So I know I keep referring to, I'm not referring to later classes just to make sure that you show up. Not really, but please show up because I love having this big group. It's so great. The short answer to that is contractions are the same muscle doing the same thing. So whether your body does it with the hormone, the oxytocin that's doing it, contracting, or it's an artificial oxytocin, pitocin that's going through your veins that's contracting, that contraction muscle is really doing the same thing. It's more about the pattern that can feel different. And we have 2 nights of induction. Class 8 and class 9 are about induction because I feel like the induction rate in North America is very high. And I want to make sure that everybody really gets that information down. Okay. So Iris says, is active labor more painful than birth? Do you mean birth like the actual baby coming out? I'm guessing. And I would say that's probably subjective because some people find contractions easier than the pushing phase, and some people love the pushing phase and don't love the contraction phase. It's interesting. There's like 2 different camps, I think. And it's sometimes different from baby to baby too, as you have different babies. Okay, we have gone through active labor. We've touched on that. I want to talk about the last phase of labor, of the opening of your cervix, that 8 to 10 centimeters dilated. And I absolutely love this photo for transition because clearly she is working hard. Now, these photos are all unmedicated, okay? So contractions with an epidural or any other pain medication will look different, right? Won't be up, won't be maybe experiencing the same type of pain. But I want to show you, I like to start out of sort of the idea of unmedicated because that's sort of the default that all of us either choose or might have to choose. And then we will definitely go through, we have a whole night on epidurals. And I want to really give you an idea of what that is too and how the phases look in that as well. So if you're looking at this and you're like, I'm not sure about this, I'm kind of planning an epidural. Yes, that's fine. I just want you to kind of have, I want you to have the knowledge. So transition is where our contractions are coming generally under 3 minutes apart. And they're lasting generally 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long. So again, start of contraction, 2-minute contraction, 1 minute rest, 2-minute contraction, 1 minute rest, 2-minute contraction, 1 minute rest. So that rest phase of transition is generally where people are just like collecting themselves, sip of water, fanning, next one comes. Now, this is the shortest phase of labor. Transition usually is about from 15 minutes to an hour-ish. Okay, of course, I say that. Could be different. But it's our shortest part. Now, this is the time that I want to share sort of how are we doing on time? 42 minutes. Okay. Transition is the time where people often, if they're going unmedicated, they go through this hormonal, emotional phase where they are done, where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is the worst. I'm over this. Get me medication. I want to leave. Almost sometimes like irrational thought. Like I had a client in transition that got up, walked out the door, and started heading to the exit of the labor and delivery floor. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? Because I could tell she was close to pushing. Like she was going to have her baby from the noises she was making. And this was her third baby. I'd worked with her 2 other times. And she was just like, out of here. So it's something to think about or something to know if you're thinking about planning to go unmedicated, that emotional state is almost like backwards day, back to backwards day. It's like, oh, you're having contractions 3 minutes apart. They're lasting 2 minutes and you can't do this anymore. That means we're close to pushing. You guys get that? Does that make sense? How are we doing? I'm going to take another little sip. Take a sip out there, pregnant people. Okay. Dabu Doodle says, is the pain of menstrual cramps any reference for the pain of contractions? It's a hard one because people experience menstrual cramps so differently. So if you're someone who has had strong menstrual cramps in your life, then yes. But if you're not, then no. Where the pain is a good reference. Okay, contractions. Pushing comes after transition. We have a whole night of pushing on night 10. So pushing is still contracting. We're just working with it. So one big myth that I feel like TV always gets wrong, it looks wrong, is it looks like when you start pushing that you're just pushing and pushing and pushing and there's no stop. That is not the case. You are still pushing, have a rest, pushing, have a rest, pushing, have a rest. So it's still that same kind of thing. So that's a big myth, but we'll talk more about pushing. Okay, guys, we have 15 minutes left. to talk about movement. I love it. If you aren't standing up and you feel comfortable standing up with me, now is a great time to stand up and kind of move around. I'm going to show you a couple of positions that you can try out if you're in a place where you can try out positions. Movement, why it's so important is, I got to grab my baby, is because the act of getting baby through the pelvis is a tight fit. Now, the good news is that your pelvis, unlike this pelvis, actually has joints. It's jointed. So as you are moving, you can even kind of, just put your hands on the top of your pelvis, bony pelvis. And as you're walking, you can kind of feel like, okay, yeah, my pelvis is moving. My pelvis is changing shape. And as you move, the inlet of your pelvis changes shape and the outlet of your pelvis changes shape. So moving is so important because if we can help this process along, let me know. Would you want to help this process along? Would you want to help the baby get through? Would you want to help labor go faster and bring those contractions on stronger, longer, closer together so we can get to the finish line quicker? You guys are quiet in the chat. Let me know. Let me know if you'd want to get, also if you're watching in the replay, you can leave a comment. Baby needs help getting through, and movement is a great way to do that. This poor baby, I am always just doing this, banging this poor baby's head. Now, the toy that I referenced in the beginning, I think you can visualize it, especially, well, I'm hoping you can visualize it. Have you guys seen those toys? There's two versions of them. The one I have it's sort of like a maze, and inside is a marble, and you have to move the maze to get the marble, move the toy to get the marble through the maze. So you're having to make all these little adjustments and, oh, I went too far. The other version that I really like is the one that has it's plastic and has little spots, little holes, and you have to get the marbles and they have to set in the holes. I need to find an image of this because I think you guys know what I'm talking about. So let me know in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. And thank you for understanding. Yes. Quick labor. If I have an epidural. Yes. Yes. So even with an epidural, when we talk about epidural, I'm going to give you movement for that epidural. Yes, you can still keep moving. I love that question, Graceful One. And Natalie T knows exactly what I'm talking about. Perfect. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. Survivor Challenge. Yes, Dabu Doodles. Why didn't I think of Survivor? They always do that on Survivor. They always have a little board that they're trying to move the ball into the hole. Totally, totally. For my next class, for my next version of this class, I'm totally going to show a Survivor clip. Oh my gosh, that got me so excited. I do love Survivor, especially when they're the reunions and stuff. Perplexus is the name. Oh my gosh, it has a name. I love that, Tiffany. That is your pelvis. Is a Perplexus game. Oh my gosh, I've got to look that up. Okay, so think of all of these movements. I got to pull up my pants. All of these movements that we're going to suggest, you're changing up your pelvis and your baby is the marble. So we don't want to stay in any position really for a long time. I wrote down on my notes and every 30 minutes or so. So think about almost like a circuit, like circuit training at a gym or stations at a preschool where you can go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. That's what I want you to think about movement in labor. Now, number one, all of these pictures, all of these stupid TV births, they're always showing people in the bed. If you do not have a reason to be in the bed, so reasons might be epidural, IV pain narcotics, so you're not feeling yourself, or very high blood pressure that you have to be laying down in the bed. Very rare, okay? If you don't have a reason to be in the bed, I want you to avoid the bed trap. So avoid the bed trap. And what I don't mean you can't use the bed for positions, like different positions, but what I want to show you the bed trap. And this is my bench here is a good like fake hospital bed. And that is, you get in to your hospital room and you get put kind of in this position right here. Can you guys hear me okay, hopefully? I'm yelling. And you're in the semi-reclined position. You've got your monitors on and you're being monitored. And you think, the nurse hasn't told me that I can get out of bed, so I'm trapped in the bed. This story kills me. It kills me because the nurses usually, if you ask them, can I get out of bed? They're usually like, oh yeah, sure. Oh, of course. But they often don't proactively say, hey, you don't need to be on the monitor anymore. Or, you can get out of bed now. Why don't you get out of bed? And I don't blame the labor and delivery nurses because they got a lot to do and many patients usually. So I want you to think, avoid the bed trap. I need to get up. And I want to go through some of my favorite positions. In the book, you're going to find pictures of all the positions. Also, in the book, I already put this on here. I don't know why. I keep telling you about the book because I love it so much. And I know that everybody who gets it is like, that's such a great book that goes with the thing. I wanted to remind you that if you get the book, you get access to the digital version immediately, so you don't have to wait for me to ship it. Because Seattle to wherever you are might take a little while. I'm getting excited, guys. Can you tell? I love talking about movement. Okay. Yes. Kayana says, I want to be in the bed the least amount of time possible. Awesome. Sarah is yes. Okay. So I know I talked about your pelvis being like the game. So it helping the baby through. But there's a bonus to movement that I want to introduce to you. Movement helps the pain feel better. So many times I've had people say, I feel contractions contractions came on when I'm at night in bed. They felt really strong. But then I got up and started walking around and I think they got less. I think they're less now. And I'm like, they're not. They just feel better when you're walking around. They usually feel better that way. So 2 great benefits: getting baby out, pain feeling better. So you guys are sold, right? I'm selling you on movement here. Make sure you move. I know. I hope I am. Okay. I'm going to answer this question, Rachel. Do you usually have an IV for fluids attached during labor? So IV fluids are usually not necessary unless you're being induced or you have an epidural. So if you're induced without an epidural, you can have that pole with you during these movements, just like your buddy. If you have an epidural, obviously I'm going to teach epidural movement later. But if you have to have fluids with a pole, don't let the pole keep you in bed. Your buddy can get around and move too. Okay? Okay, so my favorite position of all time, I mean, maybe not of all time, but it's a favorite. And it has a fun name. And it needs a prop. Hopefully you guys can see this chair. And that is, yes, Kayana. Thank you, Kayana said, if you have GBS, yes. So if you have GBS positive, if you're GBS positive, they give antibiotics. They run it and then they cap it off. So you don't have to have continuous IV. Great clarification. Okay, this position has a name. And it is a lot of us doulas and childbirth educators call it. And it's after a character on a bottle of alcohol. Does anyone know? Let me know what this is. So when you are doing this position, you want your foot that's up in the chair to be at a right angle to your foot that's on the ground. Think about our pelvis and what it's doing in this position. Nice big change in our pelvis in this position. Has anybody guessed what it's called? I can't see. My vision is bad. I can't see from here. Oh, I think Natalie got it. Captain Morgan. Right. This is what we call the Captain Morgan position. It's one of my favorites. I love it because it's asymmetrical. So our pelvis is opening up differently on one side. Anytime you do an asymmetrical position, this is a great thing for your support person to look at the clock and be like, okay, you're going to do 5 contractions in this position or 10 minutes in this position, and then switch. So it's good to try to keep your body even out. So Captain Morgan is one of my favorite positions. Other favorites. First of all, walking. Just walking is excellent in labor. Now, if you don't feel comfortable walking during a contraction, walking in between is still good. Walking can change up that, can change up the pelvis. Walking upstairs, sideways. So if you have stairs at wherever you're living, house, apartment, condo, you can go up, if you can imagine. This is me going. I'm not one of the, I can't do the thing, but going upstairs on one side, walk down, and then go up on the other side. Also, if anyone saw, I did a video a few weeks ago with Amanda and Nathan, where I did a doula reacts to a birth. If you haven't seen that, check that out. She does curb walking, which is where you have, if you live where there's a curb and you can walk one side up on the curb, one side down, one side up, one side down. So different ways you can move. I want to show two more positions that I think are really helpful. And I forgot to set up my other camera. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate here and you guys are kind of visualize. Okay. So if you can imagine, this is a hospital bed. This is the back of the bed here, where you put the bed all the way up like that. So it is almost like this pillow. And you have nice wide legs, kneeling and leaning. That is a great position. And moving your body into a different position of kneeling. You can also put one leg up when you're kneeling and have a asymmetrical kneel and one leg down. Now, I did not bring my birth ball in here, and I don't want to leave you guys and go grab it from my closet. But a birth ball has a lot of great positions and really can facilitate movement. And my final, before we end, movement that I think, and I'm going to answer Diana's question real quick. Do you only start movements when you start having contractions? Yes. I mean, yes and no. You could, sometimes when people have a labor that is kind of starting but not starting, where it's just kind of like puttering around, not getting longer, stronger, closer together, they can get into different positions and maybe help the baby get lower. Yes, so the birth ball is a great one for movement, but the movement I wanted to mention is using rhythm. Using rhythm. So any of these positions, whether you are kneeling, standing, sitting in a chair, sitting on a birth ball, standing and leaning against a wall, using rhythm is an excellent way to move and cope. Moving, rhythm, and coping. And we will talk about, I'm looking at my topic list. As we talk about the coping mechanisms, we're going to talk, I will, encourage you to try some of these out. But what I really want you to think about tonight after, well, first of all, I'd love for you to join. If you're going to join the after the class, it's $2.99 for a month, which is our whole class. And you press the join button, and I'm going to leave the banner on right now, just in case anybody has trouble finding it. So we're going to do more extensive practice after this class. But for everyone, I really encourage, trying some of these out. Get in the Captain Morgan. Do your limp and loose. Do your arms. Put your palms up. Practice the breathing we did last night. See how that feels. Does it feel weird? Does it feel like, okay, I can picture this? As you're kind of going about your day, looking at your house, thinking about if you are going to be laboring at home, where can you labor? Where can you kneel on the couch? Can you lean over the kitchen table and do some nice rhythm? Where can you visualize, and how can you move around labor? So think about that. I would love for you to share tomorrow at class with me and tell me if you had any ideas of labor. If you want, this is a big if. Some people want to share pictures. If you want to share a picture of you in a position in your house you're practicing for labor, and you're willing to have me share in the beginning of class tomorrow, I know this is a big ask. You don't have to, but if you do, send it to me at info@supportingher, because I love seeing those. A lot of times people will send me like pictures and their pets are in it, which is very fun. Okay, so we're at an hour. We have talked about contracting. We have talked about moving in labor, dancing in labor. That would be a great way to move. You're going to avoid the bed trap. You're going to put that one in your mind, right? Remember that. What else? Tomorrow, what else do I need to share before I wrap up? Tomorrow, we're talking early labor and sleep and denial. So as always, I have a link below to homework. So if you haven't watched the related homework videos and you want to lock in some of this information, or even quiz yourself, or make sure that just another way to think about this, check out the homework link. It links to a playlist. Again, YouTube Childbirth Class is the way to go. And oh my gosh, O'Neill, you were awesome. Woo! I love the super sticker. Thank you, O'Neill. That's awesome. The super stickers and super chats, and I know you guys are sharing with friends and smashing the like button. It is so helpful. It's so helpful to get the word out and share with other people, and I really appreciate any kind of sharing and liking, and I appreciate the super sticker, O'Neill. That was awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm heading over to the after the class now, and I will see you guys either there or hopefully see you tomorrow night. And great seeing you. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.